I'm very happy to introduce our next speaker, who was actually just arriving from the States, like it was 10 minutes. His flight was delayed, and bref, he's now with us, and we're going to have a kind of a mixed session. He's going to do a few slides in explaining one of the projects they've done at the Mondelez International, and then we're going to follow that with a conversation. So please help me welcome Bonin Bough, who's the VP at Mondelez International for Global Media and Customer Engagement.
Hello, Paris. How are you guys? Good? Come on. A little bit of excitement. So I'm going to go through something really quickly. What I want to talk to you today about is the future of food and what the world might look like. Oops. Or maybe I'm going to hear the music again. And what the world might look like when we're looking at connected food. And I'm going to show a little example of a project that we did. I'm going to go really quickly, just because we don't have a lot of time, and I want to spend some time doing Q&A with Cedric. So let's start. It's interesting because the world kind of began like this, where we started off as hunters and gatherers, and then eventually we got tired of having to hunt for our own food, so we invented the thing called the supermarket, the Piggly Wiggly, so that we would no longer have to kill our own food. But that wasn't enough for humans. We got even lazier, and we invented McDonald's so that we wouldn't no longer have to hunt or kill our food or even make it. We could just pick it up as a drive-through window. And then we got even lazier than that, and we're seeing the advent of platforms like Fresh Direct or Seamless, where we just sit at home, we order, and it's actually directly delivered to us. In fact, some people are super lazy. Peter Shankman's got a new book, but he tweeted out to Morton's Steakhouse that he was getting on an airplane and would love a steak, and they actually delivered it directly to him when he got off of the airplane. And if that wasn't enough, we saw the world being painted by our great friend Willy Wonka, where one day we might actually just be printing food. And that day is actually in front of us right now. So food printing is actually a reality. And if we keep going down this path, we might actually see new organizations pop up. So we might actually get a combination of food printing and platforms like Kinko's, and it might become FoodX, where you can actually just mail in whatever you want and pick it up at your local Kinko's. And with the advent of drone delivery, you might even be able to have that burger or that Oreo cookie delivered directly to you in any place that you actually are. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to explore, what does that mean in a world where we have connected food? What would that mean for a cookie? And so we began on this journey to create what eventually became Trending Vending, which was the first ever 3D printed Oreo printer that actually printed Oreos based on what was trending on Twitter. And it's interesting because this began, as all great things began, with a meeting in LA with 14 different partners, 567 PowerPoint slides, because any great idea requires a lot of PowerPoint slides. It took massive amounts of brain power, brainstorming, and drawing, and exploring all different types of ideas of what the future of food printing or connected food might be. Eventually, a number of ideas began to bubble up. This one, which was driven by this notion of trending vending. You can see it, this tiny little idea up there, the second pink sticky, and it was vending what's trending. And what really happened was we thought about what we had done 2 years ago with the Daily Twist, where we created a Facebook post every single day based on what was happening in culture. And we thought, imagine if we could bring something like that to life and actually create an actual product. That turned into a simple rendering, which eventually turned into a video, which we used to present to the team to say, could we actually bring this to life? And then we started to bring it to life. And what was interesting about this was, if you really begin to think about it, what we had to do here, and this is kind of some of the parts that turned into this vending machine, what we had to do here was we had to bridge the, between actual bits and atoms. So we actually had to turn bits actually into real atoms. And here's one of the first prototypes of the beginning of the delivery system. This actually happened over a 6-week period of time that we brought this to life, prototyping on a continual basis. Here was the very first version that we showed to the team, very paper prototype-like, just so that we could begin to understand what the future would actually look like. We had to go out and actually create. There had never been an Oreo 3D printer in the history of the world. So we actually had to go out and identify new types of objects to bring this thing to life. So here's an example of surgical tubes. We had never actually extruded cream to actually print, so we had to actually go and find surgical tubes so we get the right size nozzle. These are compressors. We tested many iterations because we didn't even know what the right viscosity was. We actually don't ship shelf-stable cream. extreme, so we had to explore a lot of different options. Here's the guts and the inside of what eventually became the 3D printer. We had to write our own software to actually manage the print heads that circle around, and I'll show a quick video in a second. I'm just going through. The biggest challenge was, what does a tweet actually taste like? Eventually, we affectionately called it Eat the Tweet, but what does a tweet actually taste like? So we actually had to create our own markup language, so we created our own quantified snack markup language, which made decisions based on everything from sentiment to size of conversation, what that tweet might actually taste like. Oops, sorry, with the clicker. And then at the end of the day, we brought that to life in what was probably one of the most exciting experiments that I've ever done, and we delivered that to probably the most cynical crowd in the world at South by Southwest. If we can just play the can video, which will show the entire experience to you guys all in one shot.
We're gonna get it in just a second, the video can.
Sorry, guys.
So you can take a
Oreo
breath.
cookie you hold in your hand were a part of the social network. Oreo, the world's favorite cookie for over 100 years, dared to wonder about and envision the future of snacking distribution. So they conducted an experiment to bring this to life, tapping into the immediacy and spontaneity of social media to create custom, real-time snacks. The test kitchen was South by Southwest Interactive 2014 in Austin, Texas, where Oreo unveiled a new experimental technology called trending vending. They developed proprietary 3D printers that built custom cookies based on trending social conversations, allowing visitors to select, make, and taste cookies in real time. Twitter-powered algorithms turned each topic into unique Oreo inventions that visitors could further customize to match their mood right at that exact moment. Between all the various cream flavors, colors, patterns, and wafers, over 16,000 delicious custom Oreo cookie variations were possible. And yes, they all tasted like the cookies Oreo fans know and love, truly bringing the wonder-filled experience to life. 10,000 Oreo lovers waited in line for upwards of 2 hours for the chance to create their very own cookies and be a part of the experiment. Then they shared their experiences with the world. Feedback was enthusiastic and immediate, inspiring others to take part in this one-of-a-kind experience. The trending vending activation propelled one of the largest spikes in Oreo social conversation and media attention since the Dunk in the Dark tweet of the 2013 Super Bowl. Oreo saw the highest Twitter engagement at South by Southwest among comparable food and snacking brand activations. Trending vending epitomized the iconic Oreo wonder-filled brand experience, triggering the imagination and curiosity of the media with overwhelming and positive results. Following the success of the activation, Oreo is now taking the trending vending machines on the road. Imagine a future where you could make custom snacks locally in your own backyard, fresh, on demand, and wonder-filled. Now that would taste pretty good.
Yep. Thank you.
There you got it. There you have it.
I believe we should have more startups coming here to get inspiration how you present on stage. I mean, we had you 2 years ago. It's always amazing. So thanks again for joining us. Very quick, 2 questions before we go on more general question about what you're doing at Mondelez. What kind of food will we never get 3D printed, in your opinion?
It's hard to say. I don't know. I actually, you know, I have no clue.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what food will be 3D printed, which will not be 3D printed. Maybe lasagna, although I showed lasagna, so I guess I'm wrong. Pizza.
The biscuits might be 3D printed?
I mean, in reality, what this was it was an experiment to push the limits of asking ourselves, what does a world, so I think what people don't realize is that, well, we're heralded a lot of times as a real-time marketer. We don't really believe that real-time marketing ends at the ability to create a post on Facebook or even a video in real time. We believe that it'll transform the way that we operate our entire business, all the way from conception of a product through supply chain to delivery. And so if you really begin to think about this, imagine a world where you could have been watching the World Cup, having a conversation on Twitter about the World Cup, and the next day be able to actually buy a taste of that conversation or that experience. So how do you begin to look at building a business in a way that is actually reactive to real-time changes and real-time consumer demand? The other piece around here is the understanding of customization. So we were running 2 vending machines. One you could go up to and watch it. We were choosing the trends that would print. You could go watch it, print, taste it, exactly the same experience, except you couldn't customize it yourself. The second one you could customize. That one had a 2-hour line. People literally waited on the line for 2 hours for the ability to customize the experience. So the future of customization is something that we learned in a big way here, and hopefully you'll see that being executed on mass scale from us soon.
Yeah, because this was like a one-time project, but you want to continue it now.
And it won't be necessarily 3D printing. I mean, when you think about all the different ways that you can customize that experience, so without giving away what it actually is. But the point here was really to experiment with an audience, and we really believe that platforms like LeWeb and South by Southwest have the best and brightest minds in the world, and what we like to do is experiment what the future might look like and have the most cynical audiences actually begin to pick it apart, but help us learn. So the other piece here is high throughput prototyping. So it takes us quite a bit of time to come up with a flavor. Here we were printing 12 different flavor combinations, 2 different wafer types, and we were able to print in totality almost 16,000 different flavors. So just think about the ability to do high throughput testing on what people actually like. What I didn't talk about is some of the nuances. In the screen in the bottom, we would show what were people's favorite, how many times was that one flavor printed, or how many times was that trend actually printed into a cookie. So beginning to get also real-time feedback around what consumer likes and don't like. So all of these have big implications as you think about rolling this out from a larger organizational standpoint.
Yeah, in your case, it's not just such as other brands, it's not just customization of the packaging, it's real customization of the product.
Real customization of the product.
A question, depending on this project you run, but that can be more global. So can you give us a budget?
No.
No, okay. Even like big idea? And or perhaps a more interesting question is, it's of course a big budget. How do you convince your management to spend?
Well, so this was a joint project in partnership with Twitter, actually. So it was a co-investment from us and Twitter. This was, again, the basis of this will turn into a monetization opportunity for us around customization. So that's kind of what was the reasoning behind us actually doing it. Not to mention the fact that it's a huge experience for the brand itself. I mean, the people who stood there and watched, first of all, they looked at it and they were like, how is this even possible? How am I actually printing a 3D Oreo? And then I would take people behind the scenes to watch, and it was just amazing to see the machine actually operate. But I think what's great about this is that these type of programs, so what really happened here is that one of the people who run our food, one of our food scientists, Dwayne, actually saw this, and he said, you know what, I believe that I can begin to look at customization of our products in a totally different way. And so the inspiration that it spawned for the organization to think different about what the future of the products that we deliver is value in and of itself.
Okay. I want to make sure we speak a little bit more about what you're doing globally at Mondelez, and not only about 3D printing, especially not answering questions such as how can we 3D print your socks, which there's a fan somewhere. So you told me e-commerce is now one of your main focus, right?
Yes. So about a month ago, e-commerce became part of my remit. It's very exciting. So first of all, if there are any startups that are focused on e-commerce, you should talk to me right after this, or find me on LinkedIn and connect with me immediately. But really, from us, we believe that there's a new future which is kind of marked by something that Laura Henderson, who runs our US media, kind of coined, which is the future of media meets commerce. So what does it look like when you're able to drive every piece of media to a real close? What does it look like when you're able to do that alongside your channel partners and really reinvent value for the retailers and partners across that entire value chain by rethinking rethinking how your media and your owned and operated channels actually execute. And what better place to do that than to bring those two together and also make media even more accountable than it's ever been, and begin to build different awareness models of what's actually working, even when you look at the sample sizes that we think we'll be able to generate as representative of our broader effectiveness of media. So we really believe that it's going to transform the way we think about measurement, the way we think about brands, and ultimately the way that we drive the future of our business.
We had Guillaume Giorgi from Ferros this morning, and he's doing the same direction, driving traffic to online retails to partners, and he's focusing a lot on data to measure what are the impact of actions on sales. Is it the same for you? Like data is the key of everything for e-commerce?
I mean, if you look at the movements that we've made, so our announcement of our TubeMogul deal globally, which was really not about programmatic buying, but really about data ownership and thinking differently about data, and then beginning to capture every single piece of data that's thrown off from our media and our owned and operated interactions.
Okay.
I mean, data is the game, right? Data is the battlefield that will separate those that win from those that lose over the next 2 to 5 years.
So, and not to be a loser, you need talent. So this is also one of the key, your key preoccupations these days, is to make sure talent is joining Mondelez.
So one of the big things, one of the big things we talked earlier, and he asked what were some of the focus areas, and one of the areas are really around talent, and I think it's really this dual. First of all, I think there's going to be an attack on talent in the next 3 to 5 years, the likes that we've never seen, and it'll be driven by 2 pillars. One is that many people, most of the institutions and organizations that you graduated from and work for are probably not preparing talent to be leaders of this generation of organization. And to give you an example, we did some back-of-the-envelope math, and less than 1% of the course descriptions of the top 100 business schools even use the word mobile, social, or emerging technology. So we're graduating MBAs into the world that are not prepared for this generation of organization, and it's no fault of anybody other than most of the folks that are in those institutions probably haven't been practitioners in the world that exists now. The second piece of that is then you enter into big institutions, and while they talk about innovation, they don't really incentivize around that. So we're actually still, again, not training this next gen of leaders. That would all be fine because the only way to become a VP in big organizations 15 years ago was to just work in another big organization. They tended to all operate the same. The difference now, though, is 15 years ago, organizations like Amazon, LinkedIn, Google, these guys began to be built. Same type of talent that came out of MBAs, running the same size businesses, same P&Ls. The difference is they're digitally affluent. And so I believe we have 2 things. One, we have an obligation to the talent that sits inside of our building right now to make sure that we're preparing them to be, sorry, let me step back. The other thing, when I talk to the guys in the Valley, I hear the exact same thing. They're like, you know what? We're tired of selling books. We want to sell cookies. We want to sell chocolate. We want to reinvent hotels like Airbnb or transportation like Uber. And those guys are beginning to look at our ranks and say, you know what? We're going to move over there and try to reinvent that business. And I feel we have an obligation to our talent to make sure that we're preparing them to compete against that ever-changing sea, but also if we want to grow our business, if we really want to drive growth, preparing our talent is one piece, but also celebrating our talent is another. And so how do we become a talent-driven organization and really focus on this new notion of the talent economy and really begin to celebrate and herald the talent that sits inside of our building? And I feel very blessed to work with some of the best and brightest minds in the world. And
one of the key things you want to prepare your team to is make sure they work with the current world and not just stay in the office and try to reinvent everything. So that's why you were open to meeting startups and e-commerce people and doing something with Twitter and all the big brands. I mean, you always want to partner with other people and startups, right?
I mean, if you look at if you look at just the nature of the deals that we've made. So when we did our Twitter deal, it was the first Twitter embed deal. So we actually embedded people from Twitter in offices in our offices around the world. Or you look at the work that we did with Google with the first big mobile-only deal, which was really capability building. So overnight, we mobilized all of our brand sites and built mobile training. And if you look at the platform that we launched, Mobile Futures, which was the first mobile corporate accelerator partnering startups with brands, that was about, and the great thing about that, and I'll tell you, so it wasn't just about partnering the startups with the brands. We had guaranteed funding. We delivered it in a time period, which was 90 days, so actually operating at the speed of a startup. But we also made our folks, not made, but we had our folks go and work for the startups for a week. That immersion session began to change every single person's mind. I'll tell you, all 9 of the folks that participated in the US class, and then the 5 in the Brazil class, and the 5 in the Australia class, which rolled it out in 3 countries to date, they all came back and they said the same thing. Bonin, should we go and work for a startup? And I said, no. Because if 9 of our top marketers quit, Bonin will be fired. We need to focus people. But more important, think about how much you've been changed. And imagine applying that thinking to big brands, big resources, and what the potential is. And I'll tell you, when I go and I see the plans from all the alums, you can see how forward they've been. Not only are they thinking differently, but also they have a network of people who they can pick up and call. Founders like Keep or Waze or any of these startups that we partnered with. And they also have built networks in the Valley that they can, trusted networks that they can reach on. And those type of programs are what transform your talent. We celebrate them as entrepreneurs, internal entrepreneurs, but it really builds your business and ultimately at the end of the day drives growth.
Thank you. No, thank you. I mean, time is over, but I wish we had way more time.
Next year.
Pure inspiration. Let's make sure, I'm not in the organization next year, as I explained, but let's make sure you come next year.
So not next year?
No. I want to make sure you come next year for at least half an hour, because this is pure inspiration.
10 more minutes.
Okay, you want 45 minutes. You will see that with Ben, but thanks, Bonin. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Cedric. Thank you, everybody.